Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1835 AN. Today's date is April 7th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Countries Are Beginning to Weaponize Gold. Central Banks Are Panicking. Now, I want to talk about Trump and how he's draining the swamp. It's taken 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants for Donald Trump to announce the attempt to tie him to Russia interference in the election campaign had failed. He just keeps rolling with the punches. If you're a fan of the president and you want to show your support, you might want to celebrate the news with one of these solid silver or pure gold President Trump Freedom Coins. Go to TrumpCoin2020.com and also make sure to use the code X22 to save $5 off per silver coin, and use the code X22 with gold at the end to save $100 off the gold coin. To get these coins, don't forget to click the link below and use the code X22. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the big question has always been, if you wanted to bring down a central bank system, bring down the reserve currency, what would you do? How would you proceed in bringing all this down? Well, you would go after the petrodollar, of course. Then you would use gold to build confidence. And this is exactly what we're starting to see. Think about what is happening. Trump is nominating two individuals that want a gold-backed dollar. We're seeing countries around the world accumulate a lot of gold. China, Russia, India, many other countries. They've been purchasing a lot of gold or repatriating their gold. And if you really wanted to go after the central bank, you would need to destroy what they set up back in 1971. That is the petrodollar system. And we might be seeing this happening right now. We're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But let's go out to the UK, because what we're seeing there is that the people, they are ready for a Brexit. The government minister who was responsible for no-deal planning at the BREXIT department says that Britain is officially ready for a clean break with the European Union. MP for Daventry has again pressed home that hundreds of civil servants have been working for over 2 years to ensure we'd be ready for a no deal. But there's a problem. Those in Parliament, they're doing everything they possibly can to stop the Brexit. So we have what the people want, we have what the EU wants, and what the Parliament wants, which is siding with the EU at this point. Now, if we take a look at the Brits and what they really want, the latest poll shows that the majority of British have had enough. While Parliament has so far been completely unable to agree on a way out of the current deadlock, there is a consensus among the public. There's a survey which was done by YouGov that shows that, assuming the EU were to allow an extension, only 11% think we should take that offer, with a 40% saying that the country should then settle for a no-deal situation. So when you start to break this down, you see that in different parts of the UK, we see there's different results. In Scotland, saying 30% they want a no-deal. 53% want to remain. Wales and the Midlands, no deal, 49%, remain 40%. Non-London South, no deal 50%, remain 40%. North, no deal 45%, remain 40%. London, no deal 30%, remain 54%. So when you look at it, no deal 44%, remain 42%. So when you're looking at the UK as a whole, the people are saying, listen, let's just break away right now. Let's just move away and be done with it. And we'll have to see what happens. But it does look like they might be heading towards a no deal. Now, will the central bank let them? Will government try to stop it? Of course they're going to try to stop all of this from happening. They don't want it to happen. And they're going to try to wear the people down. Now, we see the economic system. It is deteriorating. It is breaking apart. And we're starting to see this huge pattern with housing all over the place. We talked about Canada, we talked about Europe, we talked about UK, we talked about the United States, and we've talked about Australia. And when we look at Australia, national home prices, they are declining by 0.60% in March. Now, when we look at this, we can see that everything that's been pumped up Well, it's all starting to fall apart. All 8 capital cities in Australia posted declines. When you look at Melbourne, 3.4% down, Sydney, 3.2% down, Perth, 2.9% down, Brisbane, 1.1% down. It doesn't look good. Now, Sydney recorded the most significant annual decline of about 10.9%. Melbourne followed with about 9.8%. Australia's economy is faltering, intensified by the real estate crisis, and it's making it increasingly likely that the Reserve Bank of Australia will slash interest rates in the coming quarters. And I don't think this is the only place we're going to see interest rates being slashed. I think here in the United States, Trump has already called out the Federal Reserve and saying, listen, we need the interest rates slashed right now. Why? He needs to keep the system continually chugging along until after the 2020 election. Right now, this first term of his presidency has been to set everything up, to put the pieces all in place, to remove those corrupt individuals, to have all the investigations, to set up the central bank and control it, to bring jobs back here to the United States, to get rid of the TTIP, to get rid of NAFTA and replace it as best he can right now until he has the ability to remove it completely. Remember, he had to deal with what was given to him, and it's all tied up in Congress, and there wouldn't be enough time to have Congress, discuss or negotiate a new deal because Congress was not in that mode. But what we see Trump and the Patriots doing, they are now moving towards bringing down the entire central bank system. And how do you do that? How do you bring down the central bank system? You need to go after the source of all of this. You need to go after the petrodollar. You need to go after the central bank. You need to introduce gold. And we're starting to see this happen. All the pieces are starting to come together. Now, Saudi Arabia, they are threatening to drop the dollar as its main currency in selling its oil if the U.S. passes a bill that exposes OPEC members to U.S. antitrust lawsuits. Now, we know that the death of the petrodollar would bring down the central bank system. And it would bring down the entire economic system because that is the reserve currency of the world right now. We know the petro yuan has been gathering momentum, and this is a direct threat against the petrodollar. Now, the central bankers knew for a very long time that the petrodollar was doomed, and they were going to switch the entire system and move it towards a new system. Might be SDR, might have been the yuan, might have been something else. What exactly it would have been, we don't know, but we know that they were planning on this. Right now, the Patriots, they are planning to bring this entire system down. How would you do it? Well, you got to go after the source. You have to back up the entire system with something that builds confidence. So you bring in 2 individuals, you nominate them to try to restructure the Fed, introduce gold, at the same time destroy the petrodollar. Now, NOPEC, or the No Oil Producing and Exporting Cartels Act, was first introduced in 2000 and aims to remove sovereign immunity from U.S. antitrust law, paving the way for OPEC states to be sued for curbing output in a bid to raise oil prices. Now, think about this for a second. Trump is actually for this. In a book that was published in 2011, he actually backed NOPEC and said it would be a good thing. I mean, he hasn't mentioned it as of yet in any of his tweets, but I think eventually what's going to happen, we'll start to see this being mentioned. I do believe that they're going to have to bring down the petrodollar system. They're going to have to introduce gold. They're going to have to restructure the central bank. And we're starting to see all of this happen at the same time. Think about Russia and China. They've been accumulating a lot of gold. Germany has repatriated. Many other countries repatriated. Other countries are purchasing gold. And we need to remember something very important, is that the reserve status doesn't last forever. We're at the end stage of all of this. The whole entire system is breaking down. It's falling apart. Has nothing to do with tariffs, has nothing to do with Trump, has nothing to do with anything that Trump is doing right now. This has always been slated to come down around now, but they were planning on using an event to cover it all up. They just don't have that event. But we can see the central banks, they're a little bit worried about countries asking for their gold. And we can see this out in Italy. Now, ECB President Mario Draghi, he issued an odd statement confirming that the European Central Bank needs to approve any operation in the foreign reserves of Eurozone countries, including gold and large foreign currency holdings. This is what he said. The ECB shall approve both the operations and foreign reserve assets remaining with the NCBs, the national central banks, and member states, transactions with their foreign exchange working balances above a certain threshold. The purpose of this competence is to ensure consistency with the exchange rate and monetary policy of the Union. So Draghi made this statement to two Italian members of the European Parliament, and he did this on purpose. But at the time when he was making this statement, a lot of people didn't realize why he was making it, but now it's becoming clearer and clearer. The Wall Street Journal reports that Italy's ruling populace pushed ahead this week with efforts to seize control of the central bank and its gold reserves. Now, we talked about this before. Italy wants their gold. The central bank said no. So this week, Italian lawmakers from the Five Star Party, they're asking Parliament to pass two laws that are in draft right now. One law would instruct the central bank's owners, most of them private banks, to sell their shares to the Italian treasury at prices from the 1930s. The other law would declare the Italian people to be the owners of the Bank of Italy's reserves of 2,451.8 metric tons of gold, worth around 102 billion of current prices. Now, the leader of the Brothers of Italy, a far-right opposition party, said the following: "The gold belongs to the Italians, not to the bankers. We are ready to battle everywhere in Italy and to bring Italians to the streets if necessary." The Five Star Movement and the League support public ownership of the gold reserves, with the backing from parties comprising 60% of lawmakers. The draft law has enough support to pass right now. So Italy is now making a move against the central bank system, saying that we want our gold back. The central bank doesn't want to give them the gold. Now, I thought the central banks didn't care about gold. I thought they said it's a barbarous relic. We just hold it because, in the past, that's what central banks did. Now we're coming to find out that they don't want to give it up. That tells you something. That tells you that gold is actually the money. The paper currency, that's just paper with ink on it. And why don't they accept their paper currency for the gold? Think about it for a second. They don't want to give it up. Italy wants it back. Countries are beginning to say, something? The people should hold on to their gold, not the central banks. This is just the beginning. And we can see everything is starting to move into position. And we're going to see a lot more countries do what Italy is doing right now. And countries are going to start to realize that, something? The people need to hold the gold. This is why Germany wanted their gold back. This is why Venezuela wanted their gold back from the UK. This is why China and Russia have been purchasing a lot of gold. This is why India has been purchasing a lot of gold. And this is why gold will be backing the next currency system. We already see Trump is maneuvering to restructure the Fed. And it seems that the patriots are in full control of what the Fed does right now. And I think moving forward, we're going to see more of this play out, and it's going to accelerate as we move towards 2020. And right after the elections, when Trump wins again, you're going to see things move like you've never seen before. And Trump will be making announcements that you would never believe that he was making, that we're going back on a gold standard, that the central bank is a criminal entity, that it needs to be audited. And of course, how is he going to do this? With a crisis. Because this way he'll be able to point the finger at the Fed. This is why he's been contradicting the Fed this entire time, calling the Fed out. So people hear it. So people wake up and understand that it is the Fed that is the problem. They raise rates, the market comes down. They just keep rates steady. It's not good enough. They need to lower it. Think about it for a second. And he can show that they really don't know what they're doing because they said the economy is improving. These are the best statistical numbers that we've ever seen. But yet they're backing off on raising the rates. They're discontinuing their tightening. Something doesn't make sense. And he can make the case to show why the central bank really doesn't know what it's doing. And let's take a look at what they've been doing. And this is going to be coming very, very soon. We're approaching this point in time. And this is why you see everything starting to move into place. And we're going to see a lot more of this as time goes on. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.